Donald Trump continues to try to scam the American people as he's running our country into the ground, running our economy into the ground. The scam continues with Donald Trump reposting state regime media known as Fox that says, quote, "They're going to back down." Actually, quite the opposite is happening.
Remember when Trump said he'd make America great again? Well, turns out he made it a laughingstock instead. From Twitter tantrums to trade war tumbles, our orange friend's been busy turning the USA into the world's favorite punching bag. But hey, who needs allies when you've got Putin on speed dial, right? Join us as we watch Trump fumble through foreign policy like a bull in a china shop, leaving a trail of face palms and broken alliances in his wake. This has always blown my mind a little bit. 91% that watch this show regularly haven't subscribed. Could I ask you for a small favor before we start? If you like this show, what we do here, and want to support us, the free simple way you can do just that is by hitting the subscribe button. Remember when Trump bragged about being the ultimate deal maker? Well, turns out his negotiation skills were about as impressive as a wet noodle in an arm wrestling contest. Our orange friend swaggered into the White House like he owned the place, boasting that he'd make America great again through sheer force of his big, beautiful deals. But when it came to international trade, he was smoother than a cactus in your underwear.
The US will be flooded with jobs as foreign nations avoid tariffs, Trump says. They're going to be so scared by the threats, running our foreign policy into the ground, turning the United States of America into an isolated pariah state. They are imposing retaliatory tariffs. Also, like in Canada, they are boycotting all things American, a massive boycott.
Trump's brilliant idea of negotiation: slap tariffs on everything that moves, then act shocked when other countries decided to play the same game. It's like he thought he could punch someone in the face and they'd just stand there grinning. Spoiler alert, they didn't. Let's take a peek at the China trade war. It was like watching a toddler try to play chess with a grandmaster. Trump's masterful strategy: fire off threatening tweets at 3 a.m. and hope China would just roll over and play dead. But instead of cowering in fear, China hit back harder than a kung fu master on steroids. And it wasn't just China feeling the wrath of Trump's stable genius trade tactics. Our friendly neighbors to the north got a taste of the Trump treatment too. Canada, land of maple syrup and excessive politeness, found itself on the receiving end of Trump's tariff tantrum. And boy, did they not like it. In a move that shocked absolutely no one, except maybe Trump, Canada decided to hit back with their own tariffs. Suddenly, American goods were about as welcome in Canada as a snowball in July. It was a regular old North American trade hoedown, and American farmers were the ones left without a chair when the music stopped. But did our dealmaker-in-chief admit that maybe, just maybe, his plan wasn't working? Of course not. Trump kept insisting he was winning the trade war, proclaiming, "We're going to win so much, you're going to be amazed." Meanwhile, American farmers were amazed all right, amazed at how quickly their export markets were disappearing. As the trade deficit ballooned faster than Trump's ego, he kept assuring everyone that victory was just around the corner. Sure, and I'm the Queen of England. Trump's art of the deal had turned into the fart of the wheel in international politics, leaving a stench that even his strongest supporters couldn't ignore. But hey, at least he made America great again, right? Trump's negotiation tactics were about as subtle as a sledgehammer in a china shop. Experts were falling over themselves to criticize his approach, arguing that slapping tariffs willy-nilly without so much as a how do you do in diplomatic negotiations was like setting fire to years of carefully crafted trade agreements. But who needs allies when you've got Twitter, right? In a moment of pure Trumpian poetry, he once tweeted, "Tariffs are a beautiful thing." It was like watching a pyromaniac admire their handiwork while the neighborhood burns down. Meanwhile, back in reality, many American consumers were facing higher prices faster than you can say, "Make America pay again." So there you have it, folks. Trump's grand plan to negotiate America back to greatness turned out to be about as effective as trying to put out a fire with gasoline. But hey, at least he kept us entertained with his late-night tweet storms and creative understanding of international trade. Who knew global economics could be so complicated? Remember when Trump bragged about being a master negotiator? Well, his idea of diplomacy turned out to be about as subtle as a sledgehammer at a tea party. Our orange friend decided that the best way to make America great again was to pick fights with, well, pretty much everyone. It's like he woke up one day and thought, you know what this country needs? More enemies. So, Donnie Tariff went on a rampage, slapping taxes on goods from Canada, Mexico, and the EU faster than you can say kofef. It's as if he looked at a map and decided to play pin the tail on the donkey, but instead of a donkey, it was our allies, and instead of a tail, it was a bunch of tariffs. Now, you might think our buddies across the pond would just shrug it off, maybe send a strongly worded letter. But nope, they decided to fight fire with fire, or in this case, tariffs with tariffs. The EU, in particular, wasn't about to take this lying down. They hit back harder than a German weightlifter on steroids, targeting iconic American products like Harley-Davidson motorcycles and bourbon. Imagine the scene, burly bikers crying into their whiskey because their hogs just got a whole lot more expensive. It's like the EU looked at a list of the most stereotypically American things and said, yep, let's make those cost more. Talk about a low blow. But wait, there's more. Canada, our friendly neighbor to the north, suddenly went from maple syrup sweet to hockey fight fierce. They slapped counter tariffs on steel, aluminum, and various agricultural products. It's like they took a page out of the How to Annoy Your Southern Neighbor handbook and followed it to the letter. Meanwhile, back in the good old US of A, companies were having a collective meltdown. Business leaders were pulling their hair out faster than Trump's toupee in a windstorm. Why? Because these tariffs were hitting them where it hurts, right in the wallet. One business bigwig even said, tariffs are a tax on American consumers. Now, I'm no economist, but when the people actually running businesses start sounding the alarm, maybe it's time to listen, but not our Donnie. He kept insisting that tariffs were making America rich. Yeah, and I'm sure the Titanic was just taking a quick dive for fun. The unpredictability of it all was driving everyone nuts. It was like trying to play chess with a toddler who keeps eating the pieces and changing the rules. One day you're making widgets, the next day those widgets cost more than a small island. Companies were reporting cost increases that would make your eyes water. It's like Trump thought he was playing Monopoly, but with real businesses and real people's livelihoods. And let's not forget about the everyday Americans caught in the crossfire. Suddenly, everything from cars to canned soup was getting more expensive. It's like Trump decided to put the grate in Great Depression 2.0. People were tightening their belts so much, they were in danger of cutting themselves in half. But did any of this give our commander-in-chief pause? Of course not. He kept tweeting about how great tariffs were, how they were filling up the coffers. Meanwhile, the rest of us were left wondering if we could fill up our gas tanks without taking out a second mortgage. Well, folks, just when we thought Trump's wild ride couldn't get any wilder, he decided to take his show on the road. Our orange friend thought he'd make America great, but he ended up turning it into the world's punching bag. Who needs allies when you've got Twitter, right? Trump's idea of diplomacy was about as subtle as a sledgehammer at a tea party. He approached international relations like a bull in a china shop. If the bull was hopped up on energy drinks and the china shop was full of trampolines, he managed to tick off more allies than a telemarketer at dinner time. Remember when he called Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau dishonest and weak? Canada hasn't been this offended since someone put pineapple on pizza. But Donnie Diapers didn't stop there. Oh no, he went full Putin and threatened to annex Canada, because nothing says good neighbor like threatening to invade, right? And let's not forget his love-hate relationship with NATO. One minute it's obsolete, the next it's great. Make up your mind, Donnie. He kept flip-flopping on NATO faster than a fish out of water. His unpredictable stance left allies scratching their heads, wondering if America would have their backs or stab them in the back. But the real kicker, Grumpy Trumpy even managed to make Queen Elizabeth II check her watch during a state visit. That's like making the Mona Lisa roll her eyes. Way to go, Mr. President. You've officially made the most unflappable woman in the world want to flap right out of there. And don't get me started on his bromance with Putin. It was so obvious, even Russian dashcam footage couldn't capture it all. While he was busy insulting our allies, Trump was cozying up to Putin like a lovesick teenager. He trusted Putin more than his own intelligence agencies. Because who needs facts when you've got a KGB bestie, right? Meanwhile, world leaders were playing Trump bingo with his gaffes. Shithole countries? Check. Rocket Man? Double check. His diplomatic skills were about as refined as a toddler's table manners. He left our allies feeling about as secure as a sandcastle at high tide. But here's the real kicker. While Trump was busy playing footsie with dictators, he was giving our democratic allies the cold shoulder. He suggested Ukraine should just roll over and let Russia take a bite out of their territory. Because nothing says America first like throwing your friends under the bus, right? Trump's foreign policy was like a masterclass in how to lose friends and alienate people. He managed to turn decades-old alliances into dumpster fires faster than you can say "Kofif." Our allies were left feeling more confused than a chameleon in a bag of Skittles. The world leaders' reactions were a mix of disbelief and frustration. They started viewing the US as that unpredictable friend who might show up to your party with a mariachi band or a live goat. You just never know. Trump's diplomatic approach had all the finesse of a bull in a china shop, if the bull was wearing clown shoes and juggling chainsaws. Alright folks, buckle up for another wild ride through Trump's foreign policy circus. Just when we thought our orange friend couldn't make America look any sillier on the world stage, he decided to take his show on the road, and boy did he deliver. Remember when Trump tried to buy Greenland? Yeah, that actually happened. Our dealmaker-in-chief thought he could just whip out his checkbook and snag himself an entire country. Denmark's response, they laughed so hard they almost choked on their smørrebrød. It's like Trump thought he was playing Monopoly with real countries. Sorry Donnie, but Greenland isn't Park Place, and you can't just plop a hotel on it. But wait, there's more. Trump's Twitter fingers were always itching to cause some international drama. World leaders were constantly playing a game called Trump Translator, trying to figure out if his tweets were official policy or just the ramblings of a man who'd had one too many Diet Cokes. It was like trying to decipher a toddler's crayon scribbles, but with nuclear codes at stake. And let's not forget the time Trump decided to play show and tell with some top secret info during a meeting with Russian officials. Even the Kremlin was like, dude, chill. It was as if Trump thought classified meant class. I find this information myself so I can share it with whoever I want. National security? More like national embarrassment. But the crown jewel of Trump's diplomatic disasters has to be his bromance with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Our grumpy Trumpy exchanged love letters with the guy, turning international relations into a bizarre reality TV show. It was like watching the weirdest episode of The Bachelor ever, except instead of roses, they were exchanging nuclear threats and awkward handshakes. Trump's approach to foreign policy was about as subtle as a bull in a china shop. If the bull was wearing clown shoes and juggling chainsaws, he'd strut into international meetings like he owned the place, leaving other world leaders wondering if they'd accidentally wandered onto the set of a bad spy movie. And don't even get me started on his tweets. Trump's social media presence was like a diplomatic wrecking ball, smashing through decades of carefully built alliances faster than you can say "kff." One minute he'd be threatening war, the next he'd be declaring his undying love for dictators. It was enough to give even the most seasoned diplomats whiplash. The sad part, while Trump was busy playing mean girls on the global stage, actual diplomacy was going down the drain. Traditional channels of communication were replaced by late-night tweet storms and impromptu press conferences that left everyone scratching their heads. It was like watching a toddler try to negotiate bedtime, except the toddler had access to nuclear launch codes. But hey, at least Trump kept things interesting, right? I mean, who needs stable international relations when you can have a president who treats foreign policy like a game of drunken Jenga? Every day was a new adventure, and how can we embarrass America today? So there you have it, folks. Trump's presidency. A masterclass in how to turn a superpower into a global laughingstock. Our orange friend thought he'd make America great again, but instead he made it the world's favorite punching bag. Experts are saying it'll take years to rebuild the trust and respect that grumpy Trumpy flushed down the golden toilet. Remember when America was respected on the world stage? Yeah, those were the days. Now, thanks to Donnie Diapers, we're about as popular as a skunk at a perfume convention. He managed to tick off our allies faster than you can say "kofif." It's like he was playing diplomatic whack-a-mole, but instead of hitting the moles, he was bonking our friendships on the head. Next time someone says they miss Trump, remind them that nostalgia is like a grammar Nazi. It makes the past tense and the present perfect. In reality, Trump's foreign policy was about as smooth as sandpaper underpants. He turned America from a global leader into a global loner faster than you can say, "You're fired." And remember, in the game of global politics, Trump played himself bigly.